I really wanted to screen share stuff with people and make it as easy as possible. And I got fed up. So I was just like, okay, let's throw this up and let's like stick on a Noster login and let's add lightning zaps to it as a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
It was pushed out a bit prematurely, but like, and get it out there. And I think a lot of people want to use it. Like I know there's been a couple thousand people who've hit it in the last month using Hive Talk pretty much all around the world because they want a way to talk to other people where you're not really getting tracked. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually had to go modify the original code base to drop a lot of the tracking information
Mm-hmm.
um, about who's on it. And I don't want to know who's on it. Like that's the deal is that we want to be able to provide a space where people don't feel like, oh, there's some googly eyes watching whatever they're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to know either, because like the way I think about this is, if someone comes along and subpoenas that server, there's nothing there.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Pear Report. I am Guy Swan, and this is where we explore everything that is happening in the new decentralized revolution and the peer-to-peer economy. And I have a good friend of mine who has been who I've been exploring the Pear stack with, and who has been developing a lot of really interesting and exciting new tools. I got to sit down with her and just kind of pick her brain on a lot of the things that I've been thinking about with problems in the space, what our biggest challenges are that we need to overcome and that we might be ignoring, and also just kind of the general complications of open source, meshnet, and distributed style protocols and software. Is why do they always seem to be fighting an incredibly uphill battle? And how do we get up the hill as easily as we can? How do we get across that barrier with the tools and the environments, with the systems that we want to build for us? So we get into all of that and a lot more with BitKarrot. A quick shout out to Swan Bitcoin and CoinKite for sponsoring this show. Swan Bitcoin is the best place to go get started in Bitcoin, or if you want to be on a Bitcoin standard and you just want to have an IRA and a business account and everything, you name it, Swan Bitcoin has an entire suite of tools. And then you buy your Bitcoin and then you withdraw it to your cold card. Get yourself a cold card hardware wallet so you know you can keep it safe. And the links and details and a discount code will be right in the description of this show. With that, let's get into this episode of the Pear Report. Monetizing freedom, ostriches, pears, and open source challenges with BitKarrot.
Welcome to Tech World.
Right? I literally, this has kind of been like my starting situation with every podcast I've been doing for like the last 4 months. I've had problems with Riverside. The conversation that I had with Carlos, ended up screwing up like an hour into it. The show that I had with Tali and Scott, I mean, literally, this has been like at least 5 or 6 episodes deep. I cannot have, technology hates me, or just technology in general is just failing.
Yeah, that's more like it. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think in so many ways, which is ironic because we're recording this right now in Discord. And I think it doesn't work for everyone. Like Discord was giving us so many problems with people who are running Linux that
Really?
we just had to get off of it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. What rabbit hole do you want to start with?
Oh, good Lord. I don't even know. There's so many. And this is funny because this is like one of those things that I feel like we need to solve. I'm paying $40 a month for Riverside and it's failing me. I'm paying $30 a month for Zencastr and it just failed us. And now we're on Discord with a free bot. And we only have audio, obviously, but we can at least record it. But this is just such a mess. Why is this so hard? Wasn't this easy? Like, not very long time ago? What happened?
I think that's the handcuffs coming out, and that's just my guess. Like, I don't have super hard evidence because I'm not behind any of these companies.
Hmm.
But it's real strange when, like, for example, Discord changed its policies 3 times this year, and every single time they changed it, every single time there's a Linux user, they're like, I can't get it to work, I quit. I've been
God,
hearing this so many times.
you know,
And yeah, I mean, I don't know.
there was actually I was just looking at I closed Noster, but there was just a post on Noster a minute ago. I can't remember who it
Mm,
was talking about YouTube not letting you watch videos now, and like aggressively blocking IP addresses unless you are logged in. And
yeah.
this is something I've been seeing more and more and this is one of the things that you and I may have even talked about this like a year and a half ago about not only the trend, but just why I think the technological landscape is headed towards siloed everything. Like everybody's kind of putting their
Yes.
walls up. And the
Yeah.
number of captchas that we were just talking about this while we were logging in to Discord, is that I just did 3 captchas that I have never done before. It was like a weird rough drawing of a penguin, and then a whole bunch of patterns overlaid, and then a bunch of random, like kind of hazy animals. And I was supposed to pick which one looked like a penguin, which, looked like I've never used this captcha before. They're different every week. And I swear, I think the AI can learn them better than the human people can now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, we can go down the AI rabbit hole too if you want later.
Oh yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Like, I've experienced the same thing with YouTube. Like, if I want to go watch something, I'm not logged in. It just takes forever to load.
Hmm.
And I if I decide to log in and use it, I don't want it to look at my browsing history, because then it's going to give me, like, posts or videos that are tuned to my history, and it just gives me such a hard time. I think they just want to track and trace everything at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's also too that the bots are increasingly a worse problem, and the trade-off between forcing the customer to always be logged in and essentially always be KYC'd, plus the benefit they can get from that, is the economics are just slightly shifting in that favor, where they're just like, all right, we'll just ban everything that might be a bot, and we don't care anymore. We already have this huge network lock-in. Everybody's got a YouTube account. We're all just going to be logged in. There's no.
Right.
I really kind of think we're looking towards the end of the open web. Well, at least in the traditional internet sense, is everything's closing down. Everything's becoming KYC. And I think part of it is just that they don't know how to solve the trust problem. And the incentive for them and the position they're in is too easy to just KYC everybody and force everybody into accounts. And everybody puts in their freaking
Yep.
cell phone number, and they get all these benefits.
Yep.
And I'm sure the NSA is nagging at them every couple of days to be like, "Are you got everybody's phone number yet?"
Yeah, it's funny because I tell people about InQtel, and they're like, I've never heard of that before.
Oh my
Like, have
God.
you heard about
Yeah.
you know about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were just talking about that on the chain of custody. The
Oh,
Whitney
really?
Webb and Mark Goodwin, they break down in a short section or whatever a bunch of stuff about InQtel in the piece, which we did on Bitcoin Audible.
Hmm. Yeah. They're the VC branch of the CIA, and they've got their fingers into almost every single big tech company out here, and non-big tech, a lot of startups as well.
Yeah, and I think it goes to show just how critical and how systemic the money problem is. It's that they're not. Why should they have owners? They're an institution that has no fundamental cost. The CIA misplaced, $2 trillion or $3 trillion or whatever the hell it was. Like, you don't even know where it is in their budget, and they just have access to all of this capital, and somehow it just gives them control. Of course, they're going to be in VC.
Yep.
It just means
Yep.
that they have buying power, they have vote power, they have control, they have influence
Right.
over everything. Why wouldn't they? It's such an easy
Yeah.
route.
Yeah. I think in Bitcoin we have to be especially careful with that now. I mean,
Yeah.
especially if you're like developing anything. Like I've always been very wary of VCs because I've seen them destroy people's lives, destroy people's companies,
Hmm.
like force artificial growth. But there's also like the grant system, which, like I'm pretty skeptical about because you never know. Like I've seen people complain about, oh, I got this grant from so and so, but now they're trying to control the narrative. Like I'm not allowed to say certain things, and they're Bitcoin developers, so that's worrisome.
Yeah. Everything's a trade off, man. Everything's a
Yeah,
trade off. It all comes with
everything's a
strings.
trade-off. Everything's a trade-off. I don't know where you want to go with this, or if you just want to freeform this conversation, or
Well, I want to start just talking about what you're building because I haven't properly explored Hive Talk. And what I wanted this episode to be about was basically where it's actually very much in line with how we started this thing is why it is. I think Noster and kind of the pair ecosystem are increasingly going to be the only sort of open corners of the internet. And I think a lot of it is specifically because of a public private key system where you identify users directly and you can share you can share a connection or a service directly with whoever you want to. And then also with a web of trust in something like Noster, and then being able to basically wall things behind payments so that everybody is staked and you basically are able to quote unquote buy a degree of trust with a small amount of sats. And I think that model is going to be the only thing that actually fixes maintaining the open web with where things are going, with all the platforms locking down. And very relevant to the problem we've been having with Discord and Zencaster and
right.
Riverside is Hive Talk. And this is built on Noster. I don't really know much about the backend architecture and stuff. I want you to tell me why you built this, what this is, and when I can use that to replace these.
You can use it anytime you want. The reason why I want to talk to you about this and let other people know is because like we would love to have more and more users. The more feedback, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Let's rewind a bit back to like last year, because like I kind of have to tell the story forward of how I got here and how I did not intend to be here.
Go to town. That makes it that much better.
It's like a twist of fate. I'm like, how did this happen? So yeah, like last year I was like, doing some podcasts on Noster, and that was really interesting, but it was really intense. And I'm not really like, how do you say it? I'm not really that extroverted. So like doing lots of interviews is really hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing more work on Ellen Bits, and before then I was just doing a lot of like experimental stuff in Lightning, just mostly out of self-interest to understand it better. Like I'm not a full-time developer. I'm like, a hobbyist in terms of like the time allocation. And like even though I was professional many, many years before, it's just like this is so that I can really understand Bitcoin and Lightning a lot better. And I started to realize, I was like, wait, there are so many holes in all this. This is actually really scary. It's really
that
scary.
Doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me, right? So I was like, okay, allow me to help you fix this patch. Let me help you fix that patch. And that's how it started. But then I think like to Ben Ark's credit, he like recognizes people who have ability to help. So I got sucked more into that here and there. But at the same time,
you shouldn't have fixed anything. That was your problem. You fixed something, and you're like, oh, you're stuck here.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you have a tag on your back now, that's what it turned into. It's like, then I started getting all these messages just going like, hey, Carrot, I want to learn how to code. How do I do this? What's the path? What's the learning path? Which is all fine and good, because I think a lot of people have these questions. And some people were asking for one-on-one help, and I was like, well, okay, it's getting to be too many people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do know other people in this space who are interested in teaching, like Asher Pembroke and like Randy McMillan. They, willing to help people, even though they're like full-time developers. So I said, okay, why don't we make like a spin-off branch of plebnet? Let's just call it plebnet.dev, and let's make a little group and we can all chat. But developers who are doing this freelance, or if they're doing this part-time, if you want their help, if you want mentorship, here's a way to get mentorship. Or like if you want like a private tutoring session, you can do that and pay them sats. So let's create like this experimental micro circular sats economy.
Interesting.
Um, it, yeah, it was all experimental. We
Yeah.
didn't do any advertising really. It was really just sort of like small community subgroup, really. And in my head, the reason why I actually thought, oh, this would be useful, you know why? Because um, a lot of people were spinning up testnet lightning nodes and testnet LM bits, and it was just like going up and going down and going up and going down, and there wasn't one that was like set. You know what I mean? Like if I
Mm-hmm.
want to go try something, it would be like I would have to set up all this stuff. And then when I'm done, tear it back down, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, why don't we, make a little membership club and then use those sats to fund some of these services. So I just started collecting these services in one place, and that's sort of what the organization is basically support. And the model, like it works, but it depends on who wants to be engaged. And um it's I mean, communities are tough. They
Yeah.
really are hard, because you have like so many different people from so many different backgrounds, and everyone's looking for different things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Man, it's hard to manage. It's hard to, it's like
exactly.
constant. Like you can't, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Communities are hard. And it's hard to grow
Yeah,
it
they're
too.
hard.
Like they easily hit
Right.
plateaus, and like
Yeah.
trying to expand a group, especially after there is some sort of cohesion with, some subgroup inside of it. It's just a lot. It's super complex.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, what's the herding people? It's like herding cats.
Herding cats, especially if they're like from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's even harder. But I think there's some like, regardless of what people want, like the content is useful. That's what I
Yeah.
figured. And especially when people are like, can you just demo this? I'm like, okay, I'll just demo it. It to me, part of like the learning experience is being able to build something and also test something, and then go show it to somebody and explain it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like if I didn't ever do that last third stage, I don't feel like I've solidified a knowledge to myself. So it's always like it's of incredible value for me to just say, hey, let's like do a regular meetup, and let me show you screen share. Let me screen share this with you to show you how this works. Right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've been on lots of audio chats where it's sort of like that button. Hey, you and I just went through this, or like it's the button at the top left-hand corner under the tab, and you're like, where? What? Right? Show it to me, right? So it's like you have these situations where people are yelling at each other over voice for about an hour. Where if you actually had screen share, you could do it in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
yeah,
you could do it
and so
so
like
much
there's a
faster. Like the Discord thing that we just went through. I can't even think like this. I'm just looking at this right now and imagining that if I hadn't just easily found what I was looking for, trying to listen to your instructions about what I should visually be doing, there is so much crap in this screen right now. The top left has like 30 things in the top left, and there's like 2 menus hidden. It's a nightmare.
it is a nightmare, right? There's so many things in there. Yeah. Yeah, so on Noster, I was like, okay, you know, there are a couple audio chats on Noster, and the
Mm-hmm.
people are really nice there because I enjoy the Noster community. Like people are much friendlier. It's more organic, um, and it's a very different feel from, let's say, going to Clubhouse or Twitter. And I don't know if you've been on any of those Twitter Spaces or Clubhouse like Spaces recently, but
Yeah.
it is just like it's turned into a shit show. Like I went on one of them, and people were just yelling at each other.
It
you
is
know?
so weird how those things evolve, how the behaviors change, and like what the people do and say and how they react to it change over time.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like that at the beginning. There was something really it was actually like much more polite than the typical Twitter beefs and the comments when you did the Twitter Spaces or you went to Clubhouse. Like there was a bit of an etiquette, but you're totally right. It's just like gone. Now it's just Twitter post except in audio.
Yeah, it's gotten a little crazy. Um, so like what happened was a couple months ago, I just got fed up with trying to do screen share Discord,
Mm-hmm.
and people were like, "Oh, I'll use Jitsi." I'm like, "I'm not even gonna go there." I said, "What if I shopped around and then did an experiment and try to tack on Noster, so that other people would potentially use this, not just a
Mm-hmm.
small group of people?" And I did a bit, but I did quite a bit of shopping around because there's so many platforms like Jitsi and whatever, like Zoom clones. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I found, because I was like, there's no point for me to rewrite this from scratch. Like someone's
Mm-hmm.
obviously done a very good job at some point. And I found a code base from this one developer out in like Eastern Europe called Mirotalk. And it's just bare bones. Like I like this. See, a lot of people are like, why don't you use something like Jitsi? And I went and looked at that code base as well. And I was like, that thing is built in React. And I actually have an allergy to this thing called React. I don't know if you're it's made by Facebook originally. So
Is it? I didn't know that.
yeah, like Facebook was responsible initially for creating React and for creating GraphQL. And I think in both of them, for small applications, just my opinion is like that's way too much boilerplate,
Mm-hmm.
I, golly, because I'm not really a front end dev, and like I didn't really do much work with JavaScript front end frameworks until like after 2020, and I thought, okay, this can't be hard, right? So I started looking at all these front end JavaScript frameworks, and there's so many of them now. And I think 6 months later, I had not written a single line of code. I was just still browsing frameworks.
Holy crap.
I was just like, this has got to be crazy. Because, so, like, as someone who's not full time, like, I just spend maximum like 10 to 15 hours a week in this space
Mm-hmm.
voluntarily. I have to be very conservative. I have to be very careful with my time
Yeah.
because like everyone else has got like, you got ammo. How many rounds can you shoot a day? Like everyone else has got like 50 bullets a day they can fire. I only have 5. So
Yeah.
I have to be like a sniper. I have to go in there and pick my target very carefully. So I actually spend a lot more time reading other people's code than writing. Like I have to figure
Mm-hmm.
out like what's gonna, if I'm gonna go in and build something, I want to spend most of my time working with the actual like business logic, application logic. I don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
sitting there massaging frameworks.
Yeah.
Like massaging the setup. I really don't. And you can be critical about this approach, but the reason why I went with this code base was because it was just so minimal in dependencies, and it was so like simple. It's like old school, but then I can go in there and do what the hell I want. I can spend like 2 hours a night on it and then just bang it out. That's the whole idea. And
That's interesting. So what is it about I don't know code well enough to really have any
Sure,
in-depth
sure, sure.
knowledge about this. What is it about it that makes this so different? This is something that fascinates me, but I don't have the time to dig into it. Is why different
Yeah.
code bases produce such different results and often only in like one area. Like
What do you
it's
mean by what area?
like in the sense that some code is optimized for certain tasks and then it sucks at others. And
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
tell me about this. Why is this code base? What is it exactly that makes
um,
it work for this use case here?
well, okay, so it's Node.js,
Yeah.
and Node.js was built around like originally around 2010.
Mm-hmm.
It's open source and
I see
it
Node.js
doesn't.
everywhere. It's the one thing that I've run into constantly. So, yeah.
Right, right. It's like it's super downloaded all over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these frameworks that you hear about, like React and Vue and Svelte, these are all frameworks, or Angular, they're all frameworks. They're supposed to be organizing your code that you can be more organized and build better for like large enterprise scaled applications.
Mm-hmm.
And
Kind of like Lego blocks for,
yeah, it's
yeah.
like a Lego block,
Yeah.
but in this case, it's sort of like, okay, well, we're gonna put the Lego. You don't just put the Lego pieces together. We're gonna like make all these fancy labels, and we're gonna add on all these dings and whistles, and then we're gonna do all those other things. And by that point, I'm sort of like, ugh, it's like 1:30 in the morning, and I want to go to sleep.
Oh, man.
I mean, I guess that's the best analogy I can give you.
Yeah.
If you're just probably gonna like say whatever, but yeah, my brain does not compute at that point. I don't know, like I like simple base case. That's just my style.
Mm-hmm.
And some people like, oh, I have to label all these things and to have all this like infrastructure on top. I've always been more uh get from point A to B and like don't waste time getting there.
Yeah.
So that's my style. It's just like I
Don't
can't.
waste lines. Yeah.
It's just like don't waste brain cycles. I only got
Yeah.
this, I only have this many brain cycles. And like I like Python, I like C. And a lot of people are like, Python's a slow language, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, you forget one thing about Python is that it is massive flex when you talk about cross industry. Because I can tell
Mm-hmm.
you 5 different industries right now that are using it. So if you want a job, you can cross from finance to scientific computing to like industrial manufacturing to AI to whatever else you want, because there are so many industries using it. So
Yeah.
that's like its breadth and its power in that sense, and also like business intelligence wise, you can use it easier and faster because let's say somebody's a specialist. Let's say that person is a specialist in astronomy, and he's like gathering data from like all the stars in the sky. His focus is on his area of research. He's not going to be like, he doesn't want to spend like a huge chunk of his brain resources going to divert to just like figuring out how to use a tool.
Yeah.
Like he's going to want to get the tool working as fast as it can to get to the results that he wants.
His goal isn't the code, it's what it can produce. And
Exactly.
man, in AI, dude, I cannot tell you how many times in the last like 6 months to a year I have typed pip and pi something, getting pi something installed on my computer. I don't even know. Like I always worry like after I'm using a computer for like 3 years and I've just been installing stuff via terminal. I'm just like, I don't even like see these things. I've just installed like 800 Python tools on this damn computer. I feel like I'm just like the whole back end of my computer is just going to fill it up. And then I'm just going to have nothing but applications and nothing else will fit on my computer. But yeah, it's Python. It's Python all the way down.
Just to quote Chris Latner, Python 1, right?
Truth. I would still love to get that guy on the show, but he is way too busy.
Oh, he's great. You know who you might want to consider talking to though is his wife, Tanya Latner.
Really?
Well, she's a brain. Like she's like the
No
head of
kidding.
the LLVM. Oh my God, yeah.
I haven't seen her. I've just been watching. I've been chasing Chris Latner's interviews like around podcasts and stuff. I don't even think I've been exposed to his wife at all.
She's quiet. Like I didn't even know what she did until like I think I bumped into her in a conference. I was like, "Oh, hi, who are you? What do you do?" Oh, she's like, "I'm Tanya Latner." I'm like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
And then yeah, but I mean, her area of expertise is LLVM and compilers, but I'm sure that she's, probably more available, but who knows? Like she's very friendly and
That is not a bad idea. I'm gonna write that. I'm gonna write that down.
right. Write that down, yeah. Yeah.
Write that down.
Sometimes you don't want to go necessarily for the person in the spotlight, but someone who's like, right next to them who's probably just as good, if not better.
Yeah, and they can always tell like a new story. because it's a different perspective
Yeah,
in the same area.
exactly.
No, those are usually
Yeah,
great guests.
exactly. Um, yeah, she's really smart, but she's like so quiet. I was just like, whoa, sort of starstruck. Compilers are hard. Like, I think it's like one of the hardest areas in computing is compilers.
I'll tell you, it is the most confusing to me. I don't understand. All I know is that compilers can cause a lot of problems and it can be really hard. That's that's literally all I know. And otherwise, I just kind of use them.
All the better to go chat with her, I'm sure. But anyhow, going back to the whole like where were we? Why did I pick this Codebase?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of modern code is overloaded with unnecessary like boilerplate.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. And I don't know if it's coincidental with all the politics, but I have a feeling that it is.
Interesting, really.
Well, I mean, let's go back to 2020 when I was browsing frameworks.
Yeah.
um, I was just very, very disturbed at the time because um, I think at the top of every single document page,
Mm-hmm.
like documentation page, it said Black Lives Matter. And I'm not saying that I'm for or against. It's just like I came here to read your
It's kind of
docs.
irrelevant. Like why? Like
Right.
it's like going to an afternoon party and they have Trump signs like in the party. It's like
Yeah.
what? I don't. Why are you? What's here? I'm just we just came to grill. Why why are we talking about votes?
Right? Yeah,
What's
exactly. It
happening?
was like I was like, what's going on here? Because like a lot of the backend code didn't have it. Like I actually deliberately went looking. I was like, okay, let's go look at the C docs. Nope, nothing. Let's go look at the Python docs. Nope, nothing. Let's go look at React. It was like plastered everywhere. Like I couldn't even
That's
read one
so
page without
crazy.
clicking on a pop-up that said Black Lives Matter. And then 2 years later, it was like support Ukraine. I was
Man,
just getting
politics is
very
so
irritated.
poisonous. It's
Getting
so
so
awful.
irritated.
It
I was
really.
like, why am I reading this?
Oh my god.
I, so, and then you look at the more documents I read, I'm just like, I'm so confused by what they're telling me. And then I'm starting to ask myself, is it because I'm getting old? You know? Or is it the way you guys are writing this? And then I would go read a different language, like, that didn't have the political slogans on the front. And I was like, wait, okay, this makes sense. So I think in part it's just there's been a very deep politicization that's gone into some of the stuff. And a lot of things are unnecessary. You don't need it. Like people are creating these boot camps over the last 5 years and pushing people out of them saying, you need to learn just these things. You need to learn React. And will get you a job. And meanwhile I talk to some of these people and they come to Bitcoin and Lightning and they're like, hey, I want to get my foot into Bitcoin and Lightning. I want to work on like some of this open source code. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, well, look at this. And they can't solve a problem. Like I don't know, I'm just exasperated because I kind of want to share this. A lot of people, I feel like they think they can go through boot camps and learn coding and then get a job. And what I've discovered, and this may not be the case for all of them, but in several cases I've seen in the last couple of years, people are not able to solve problems. Like they just can't solve these problems.
Do you think it's something kind of like how I would describe the education system is that they teach you what, not how, you know?
It's sort of like regurgitation. That's what it
Yeah.
feels like.
They give you instructions and you're supposed to follow the instructions and then remember how to follow the instructions, but you're not told like these are the tools and okay,
Yeah.
here's a problem. How would we attack this problem with these tools?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of definitely that. It's very narrow in scope.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, if they say, okay, I know some of this language and I know some of that language, and then you say, okay, well, solve this problem. Like there's no like specific answer. Sort of like what Michael Saylor says, there's no answer in the back of a textbook. How are you going to figure out how to solve a
Mm-hmm.
problem that's unbounded? and they just can't. That's a failure of the education
Yeah.
in ways. And I see a lot of that. I've seen both sides. I've seen people who are self-taught, who are able to figure it out themselves.
Mm-hmm.
No courses, no nothing. They've just like hacked at it themselves, read the docs, did their homework, tried it.
That's awesome.
Had a lot of Yeah, had a lot of persistence, a lot of patience. There are people who are incredibly successful. Who are, like I know one guy who dropped out of high school and actually went on and sold like a multi-million-dollar startup to like a big tech company.
Wow.
Um, and never had any formal education, but that's like sheer grit and like perseverance and a tremendous amount of patience that a lot of people don't have. And then there are other people who've graduated from top tier universities with a degree in computer science, and 5 years later can't even debug a like a 100-line Python script to save their life. So
That's
it's
crazy.
like the individual. It's crazy,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know, like I feel like in so many ways software is very much more of an art. Like the application level software is more of an art than a science. That's
Mm-hmm.
just to me, like a lot of it is like fashion, you know.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever hear devs like argue about some things, like "Ah, it should be done this way or not, sometimes I just like turn off, some of the words that they're saying and I replace it in my head and it sounds like your Versace is not as good as my, like, Giorgio Armani.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my God, it sounds like people are in fashion design. You can do the same design for a pair of pants or a shirt.
No, I can totally see that too, because your problem is open ended and there's and so many different ways you could tackle to solve the problem. It's very much like trying to tell a story or do editing or something. There's no
Oh,
explicit instruction. You can't tell somebody the way that they're supposed to edit their film. Like they have to feel, and the editing has to be done in the context of what they're trying to, the feeling that they're trying to give and the experience they're trying to give. And
yeah,
I can
exactly.
easily see that being the case in code too, even though I don't think I would
Yeah.
usually default to thinking about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think of both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like art and engineering, so it's not just like one, dimension, but yeah, I mean in a way like all these open source, going back to the whole like open source social media, networks like Noster and Key, it's sort of like
Mm-hmm.
that in the same way. They're like trying to attack, certain problems, but there's no one way to like cut that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, or yeah, exactly. Not more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah. It's funny because I've in basically going down the pair rabbit hole and the Noster rabbit hole and everything. It is kind of fascinating how many of these things are solving the same problems with different trade offs, and it's also why I think they each kind of have their place. Like I've been talking with a couple of different people about building Noster on top of like a pair client and how you could actually leverage Noster without needing the relay system, or basically being able to either leverage the relay system or a direct peer-to-peer connection. But it's interesting. Have you seen this? What's kind of your feel about the development environment in Noster and Pair?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for both like Noster and Pear. I feel like Noster is still like in this upheaval phase of research and development,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just starting to get past stage one. So going back to what do you call it? So direct messaging, for example, in Noster is still being worked on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I look at that and I'm sort of like, okay, well, it changes so fast, and I want to build something on top of it, but I feel like I have to be very patient with that because it's gonna go through a lot of upheaval.
Yeah.
So, going back to Hive Talk, so what did I build and why did I build it? I really wanted to screen share stuff with people and make it as easy as possible. And I got fed up. So I was just like, okay, let's throw this up and let's like stick on a Noster login and let's add lightning zaps to it as a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sure if a lot of people really wanted it. I was just like, oh, this is kind of fun as an experiment.
Yeah.
And then I made the mistake of showing it to Ben Ark. And then there was like, oh, you have to push this out. I was just like, oh my God. So I it was pushed out a bit prematurely, but like, get it out there. And I think a lot of people want to use it. Like I know there's been a couple thousand people who've hit it in the last month using Hive Talk, pretty much all around the world because they want a way to talk to other people where you're not you're not really getting tracked. And
Hmm.
I actually had to go modify the original code base to drop a lot of and I'm still working on it to drop a lot of the tracking information,
Hmm.
um, about who's on it. And I don't want to know who's on it. Like that's the deal is that we want to be able to provide a space where people don't feel like, oh, there's some googly eyes watching whatever they're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Um, and I don't want to know either, because like the way I think about this is, if someone comes along and subpoenas that server, there's nothing there. I didn't log anything.
No, I feel the same way. I don't want, if I ever do anything like that, I don't want your information. Dear God, please don't give it to me because I don't
Yeah.
want that responsibility.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because this is like me thinking, okay, another like open source experimental, project,
Hmm.
and I don't want people like someone even said, okay, with all the legislation and upheaval that's been going on in the last like couple of months, including chat control, and then like the custodial wallets all leaving United States for Lightning.
Hmm.
People are like, oh, you're promoting a platform. People are like zapping each other, so it's like you're a money transmitter. I'm like, I didn't touch anything. I don't want this.
Are you worried about that out of curiosity?
um, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah.
And like I said, like if you guys transfer money, it's between the two of you, and besides, the Lightning invoice never went through us. Like
Hmm.
if you click on someone's Lightning address while you're
It's
in the chat
entirely
room,
in your client that's doing everything. It's just all you're doing is hosting a Lightning address, right?
it's just like a relay.
Yeah.
It's posting a Lightning address.
Yeah.
Whatever. You clicked on the Lightning address and then you generate an invoice from that. It has nothing to do with me. But,
Hmm.
with the whole tornado cash like trial going on and uh the samurai stuff, it's sort of like, well, how far are they going to push it now? We is it
Yeah.
like any chat room that allows people to transfer money, is that now going to be a contentious issue? And I don't know. It's hard to say. Like the judge, I think, for the tornado cash, you know, um, trial was asking, if two people use WhatsApp to commit a crime, are you going to put the WhatsApp creators in jail?
I mean, that is a legitimate question. I don't understand how you distinguish the difference. Like, I don't understand how they are trying to argue that one applies and doesn't. It does not seem that they have consistent logic there at all. And I think that's like a huge part of the risk is if we have contradictory laws, then it is all meaningless. It's just whatever the authority decides to punish. Everybody's guilty all the time. And it's just who is convenient for them to put in prison. It's the whole 3 felonies a day thing, just applied to a more ridiculous environment. Like now you just get to prosecute anybody who creates software that is inconvenient for you.
A hot enough button issue that I kind of like don't want to go there, like
Yeah.
understandably, right? And
Yeah.
so it's sort of like, what I come on to talk about is, I'm interested in helping people like talk to each other without having to like yell over audio, so at least you can screen share. And if you want to like look at each other on video, be my guest
Yeah.
as well. um, because it just that was something that was missing in the Noster space. And if you want to run your own server with these modifications, you can as well. It's open source. I mean, like I would really love it if more people want to come and help out. That's really welcome. It would make things go a lot faster. But I'm not in any rush either. Like
Hmm.
we're 100% pretty much just like community donations, and if you want to support us, great. Help me cover the cost of the server. And for like the next X years, if you guys want to help us.
was about to say, what's the relative cost of the servers? You said you have like, something like 1,000 people who've used it in the last month.
Uh,
How much does it cost to keep that running and the bandwidth?
I would say, okay, well, if it increases from here on out, then I'm probably gonna have to double the cost,
Mm-hmm.
or like, who knows, triple. But it's probably around like 200 some dollars a year at this point. And then I
Okay.
have like a separate staging server, so like just to test things out before I move it over, which is it's interesting because now there's like more people coming. There's like peaks and waves of people who come, but sometimes I'm like, I have to gently nudge you off the server. I'm gonna like push them. Sorry, guys. Uh, but yeah, like I think that we would probably end up hosting to make it, you know, to help it grow, basically.
Yeah.
And it's within reason at this point, but like I think if we want to grow a little bit more, then um, it would be great to get more donations or find some model to sustain it. It's a tough business model, but it's more of I mean, I never really thought it through before I put it out there. I thought literally like 5 people would want to use this. I didn't realize that
Yeah.
that many. So, yeah, like I've talked to this developer called Dev slash FDO. He's the guy who created the Joinster protocol.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar.
I roughly, like, I know the name, but I couldn't explain anything about it.
It's okay. He created this coin join protocol after the Tornado Cash thing came out. Um, I don't know too much of the details, but he also started this fundraising for privacy focused projects called Invincible Privacy .github.io. And so like
Interesting.
he listed Hive Talk along with 8 other projects. Because I told him, I kind of want to figure out a way to make this private. I don't want to go get grant funding. I don't want to go like down some other route.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are a couple of Noster projects which are, going down the VC funding project, that kind of route.
Mm-hmm.
I've been suggested by some people like go to VC. I'm like, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, I'm not going there. Partly is I think that there's a lot of Nostr development that still has to be sorted out. Like,
Yeah.
their protocol things are going to take a while. I don't think it's going to be done within 6 months to a year. It might be like a 2 or 3 year thing, and I'm willing to be patient with it. Especially for things like direct messages, which would be great. It would be nice to have like some sort of one-time passcode setup that I believe the NPub Pro has, but they use that to direct message you a one-time code so you can log in. Um, but I think I want to see something that's a little bit better than the current direct messaging
Mm-hmm.
system because you can actually see who you're talking to. Like
Yeah.
on even though it's like encrypted, but I think that could be improved.
This episode is brought to you by CoinKite and the makers of the Cold Card hardware wallet, and it is brought to you by 150,000 sats that could be yours if you have been paying attention to the show. This could be the moment, right now, that you get yourself 150,000 sats if you've been listening. And that's because I'm going to give you the last 3 words to the seed phrase made on my Cold Card that holds 150,000 sats. I hope you understand both the importance of the seed phrase with this exercise, and I hope you got yourself 150,000 sats. I've been watching the wallet just to see if anybody tried to like brute force it from the 9 words we have so far. There has been no movement yet. As of this recording, it's still there. The 5th word is mouse. The 6th word is fault. And the 9th word is purse. Get yourself a Cold Card hardware wallet. If you have a Cold Card hardware wallet, you just punch these in. I know my keys are safe. I know that 150,000 sats is still there because I use a Cold Card. And I normally do not read the seed phrase out in my recordings. If you don't have your cold card yet, you can get one with my discount code, Bitcoin Audible. And if you've recorded down those other 9 words, maybe you just got yourself 150,000 sats. I don't know. You should check. You should check anyway, even if somebody else got it, just so you can see that you boot up the entire wallet, that you have the keys, you can see that transaction in your history. Then check out CoinKite and the many hardware security devices that they have. Link and discount code are right in the show notes. Good luck. Yeah, there's definitely an element there of like just being able to like take somebody's pub key, because I did this for a while just because it was cool and you could explore it, is you can put in somebody else's public key and then just view Noster from their perspective. You can go look at all their DMs and it just says can't unencrypt, message. But the other big thing is that you can see the length of the conversation and stuff. Like you can see each of the messages and all of the people. Like you can just look at who's being DM'd, what's recent. And that is an enormous amount of metadata and like leaked info. And I think it was I was talking to Super Sue from Wholesale, just because I've been using the absolute crap out of that project. And he was saying that, like, I know a lot of things. I keep hearing little things about like people trying to come up with solutions to the DM problem, so to speak. And there was the one of really clever idea of creating a new account that had keys in the DM of that account, and those would be shared over DM with the two parties. I can't remember what the name of this was. Maybe but that it would basically look like there was a brand new account that was sending DMs to itself, but each person has the key to that account, but only the key to like their conversations or whatever, or I guess they can sign individually their conversation inside of it. So they're the only ones that can look at the DM and look at the conversation from both of them, and they can distinguish each other's messages, which I thought was a really clever like workaround, but it is a bit hacky, It's definitely a duct tape fix, I think, or at least it feels like one.
It's been there are pros and cons to like all of Noster, I think. I think it's great because like the base protocol is really simple.
Yeah.
And so like you can get started building on it really fast. But at the same time, it's like, oh, there's things that are just constantly changing underneath you. And I can understand their frustration. I think that it's getting a little bit more mature than it was like a year ago, like a lot, And with Hive Talk, I'm sort of like open to like requests from people of what they want to see. I'm more in the process of pulling out things that are not necessary that wouldn't really suit the community. Like there's, for one of the things I've been on the fence about for a long time is like, should I leave the translate in there because it's tied to Google, or should I not?
Yeah.
That's one of those things. I'm like, I'm about ready to rip that out. And also,
that's good. I don't keep it lean. Keep it lean, and it keeps working. That's like my thing. Is reliability is shockingly hard to come by these days. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, and also like there's there's a ChatGPT integration in there. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to turn that on. I would rather see something like a Lightning Bitcoin native, integration.
Yeah.
But that's also like a tricky wall to scale. Here's one point that I just want to bring up. Like if, people are listening to like feedback about Nostr development, I feel like a lot of apps are very siloed. And the reason why, for example, is that there are a lot of Lightning AI apps out there. There's at least 5 or 6 of them. And I've gone to several of these and I said, so, hey, do you have an API so I can integrate this into like Hive Talk? And they're like, no. I'm like, but I would like to. No. I'm just like, okay. And then the only one I found was NVK's Unleash.chat. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I was like, oh man, how am I going to integrate this thing? Because like I kind of want to do it per user. So now there's this can of worms, and I'm like, I don't know if he's even working on that part as much anymore. So this is one of those things where Noster, it's a little bit, it's not there. Like there's not, I haven't seen anyone build an API which really ties together like the Noster key with the
Mm-hmm.
API. They're like, here, I'm gonna give you an API key. I'm like, can we use the Noster key to be like the API
Can't
key?
that be the API key rather than having to deal with
Yeah.
this whole system? No, that's a really good point. And
Yeah. I haven't seen anyone do that yet. Like I don't know the right way to do it too. This is just something I thought about recently,
mm-hmm,
but like being able to interconnect between more apps would be great because I feel like, like a lot of them are still, I mean, maybe it's just too early stage, so they're not really talking to each other, but like I think that would help the ecosystem a lot. So like one of the things that I'm, like I like APIs. I want everybody to talk to everyone. It
mm-hmm.
doesn't make sense for me to build a talk platform where it's by itself. Like we want to talk to you. We all want to talk to everybody else. So,
Yeah.
so I mean, I looked at the existing API. I was like, I have to rewrite this. I can rewrite the entire thing so that more people can talk to it. That's the idea.
There's something, man, you're right. The number of like odd little disconnects between things and
Hmm.
how Noster isn't being utilized in clearly the way that the potential is. Like, I still feel like there's a lot of disconnect between the different things. Like, one of the biggest things that has been incredibly helpful and feels like it actually works and that people can integrate it pretty easily is just the login with Noster. And it's so useful when you get to do it. When I'm running around between Noster integrated websites like Stacker News and then, going on Primal or Noster or anything like that, or Noster apps, whatever that URL is. I forget. I got it in my bookmarks. Um, the App Store. And like when I'm bouncing back and forth between all of those and then just basically clicking log in when my little Albi thing pops up, it's so seamless and it's so great. And then having that experience that first time with Mutiny Wallet, when I logged in and I could just see what other, Fedimints, uh, other people were using that I had on Noster. Like you can tell that the potential is going to be so huge, but there's still, I hadn't thought about the fact that using the key itself as an API would be a huge step to just knocking down that friction. Because every time I try to get like an API key or anything from services, that's not my forte. That's not my default thing. And having to dig through settings and be like, request a key and name it and all of this stuff. Now I could totally see how, what a huge benefit, what a huge boon for it to just be like, your ID is your key. Like that's your API
I'm shooting
key.
myself in the foot because I actually only thought about this a couple of minutes ago. So I mean, like if people are listening to this, like I really want to know what people think.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I'm curious too.
Yeah, I'm really
That's a really
curious.
interesting way to think about it and to
Yeah,
utilize it. Because I really
yeah.
think the ID is the most valuable piece of the puzzle, and the fact that when you have like the main relays, they basically have the public profile. It's kind of like a loose global phone book, kind of, for all of the different users, and this is why Keat is doing the same thing in kind of adding that barrier. I really wish they had just. I know they needed a lot of their own specific cryptography and stuff because you have sub keys for each of the devices, and every device has to have a key. So I do get that there was probably some sort of a barrier there, but I also just wish I could log in to Keat with my Noster ID. I wish I could just keep utilizing that for my pair tools. Like that's what we're thinking about doing, or at least hoping and exploring to do with the app that we're building, is utilize Noster for the ID and then basically use Pair for the quote unquote infrastructure so that we have to have like a server, like and DNS and all that good stuff.
They definitely can be very complementary. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really looked at Key in a while. Um, But yeah, if you could sort of join them in some way, that'd be great. Like being able to log in uh, to any app with either. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, there's another thing. So um, when I put together like Hive Talk, I figured, okay, well, there's always going to be people who are not going to be using Noster as a login and also as a backup because like the login module we use is pretty beta.
Mm-hmm.
So it went through a whole bunch of hiccups at the beginning. And there you can also log in using a lightning address and you can use like just you can type your name, you can use a random anonymous name, or you can use a gravatar email.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah, so that way people can talk to each other and you can like zap each other and you don't have to be on Nostr because I realize there's actually a huge contingent of people who are not on Nostr.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the people who've been using the platform have told me that they're using it to onboard people into Nostr and Lightning. So people who
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, yeah, there's a bunch of communities in Australia, Southeast Asia, that are all using Hive Talk
No
to teach
kidding.
people. Yeah, yeah, there's like a school Bitcoin from Australia that, they're using that now. Especially because, the Zap capability is built in,
Mm-hmm.
like Keat had it originally, but it was just LND. And I'm like, well, what if I don't use LND? Now I have a problem. I can't use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that was a sticking point. Like we used the Albi plugin. So Albi created a plugin that allows you to connect like at least 5 or 6 different types of wallets. So
Mm-hmm.
you have that flexibility as well. So, or if you don't even want to connect a wallet, you just copy the invoice and pay externally from the app, from another app if you want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, these two components actually helped me accelerate the build of this really, really fast because like I didn't have to write a lot of boilerplate code.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like focusing on integrating things and then adding other features to it and then ripping out all the other stuff, which I think, would make it a little bit more lean and also a little bit more private. Um, you can connect to Hive Talk over Tor if you really want to.
Mm-hmm.
Some people use VPNs. You can do all that kind of stuff to preserve your privacy if you want to connect to it. You can lock rooms so that no one else can come in. But there's also like this balance because people want to come here to talk to other people and want to get to know the people on the platform and connect with them. So there's like a line to walk. It's like how much privacy do you want to provide versus how much like community building do you want for a platform, right?
Yeah. 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 Versus
Yeah.
kind of like direct chat versus kind of a community building. Like
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
level of interaction is this meant to specifically be for?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, on Twitter, you can go into a Twitter Spaces, for
Mm-hmm.
example, and everyone sees everybody else's avatar, but you can also join a Twitter Spaces as anonymous and just listen in. So here
Mm-hmm.
you have both of those options as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think, yeah, one of the reasons why I want to build that API out more with like, real-time notifications is so that if there's another client that wants to integrate with us, then they can do something similar to Twitter where, your friend Guy is now speaking in this room on Hive Talk, come
Yeah.
join. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like, right? That's the kind of integration I'd like to see more between not just, Hive Talk and other clients, but between other clients and other apps.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that would facilitate things. And, that's really independent of like, what do people want to build and how do they want to integrate and what's their incentive model?
That's a really interesting way to think about it. That would be a good way to bridge the gap. I would love to get a notification that like
Mm,
somebody I followed on flare.pub uploaded a video in my Noster notifications, or
yeah,
somebody's live on Hive Talk. Like that would be really cool
exactly.
if I could just basically turn that on, be like, you have this app or this public key now has the authorization to send me a notification about my other friends related to this app. And suddenly flare.pub wouldn't be something that I just kind of forget about. You know, there've been like multiple periods where I'd be like, yeah, I want to have a Noster video thing and upload it on Flare, but then I kind of forget about it. And then like 3 months go by and I'm like, oh wait, that's right, Flare. Let me go upload on Flare. But it's disconnected. But it might just be that notification that could bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Or do a lot for it. That's interesting. No, that would be really cool to have that.
Yeah, I think Damas is working on notifications in their like test flight right now. And like I just asked one of the devs, I was like, so how do you figure out which one's going to be a notification and which not? And he sent me this face that was sweating going, we haven't figured it out yet.
It's like the Key and Peele thing where it's just like sweat down the face. I'll tell you about it later. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's that early.
Yep, that's where we are. That's where we are. It's so much potential, but there's just so much work to do. So much work to do.
Right. I mean, the nice thing about Key is, you know, on the mobile app at least, you can see like their notifications if somebody sends a message in a room. Right. If you choose to receive them, that's great.
Yeah. I've had to turn all my notifications off except for like one room because I have like 80 rooms on Keat now. It's really bad. I have so many rooms I can't find them, and until they get that the database update, it takes a while to search, particularly on mobile. Like after like the first like 2 minutes that it's open on desktop, it will search like really, really fast. But on mobile, it's still sluggish. And navigating, trying to find the room or your DM chat with somebody. Like if we had a DM chat, I don't think we do. But in Keat, dude, scrolling through 80 rooms trying to find that thing. that's
like murder.
That's a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the ass.
It's so painful.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I had to delete so many of them. I was just like, oh my god, I can't keep up.
It's all my chats, all my chat apps turn into this. Every one of them. It just happened.
Yeah.
So if this is built on Node.js, I'm actually curious how well would this work with Pear, because everything, and I don't know, again, I don't know integration or implementation, but how you said, you know, this is open source, so I could run my own server. How difficult would this be to basically run this on top of like a wholesale connection or a Pear connection, and then just talk with all the same tools to Hope or to my developer, somebody else in my business group?
What, on Key or something else? I don't know what you're meaning on Pear. Like, I don't know
just using Pear to establish a connection. Like, so maybe I'm not asking this
Explain.
right. So let's say just letting someone connect directly to me on my computer without DNS and without like wholesale. Have you used wholesale yet?
I have not used wholesale, but I've heard it's like Tailscale.
Yes, right? It's like Tailscale, except that it just creates the peer-to-peer connection like Keat does. So there's no server or account or anything like that. You just get a key and then you scan or paste, and voila, you're connected. Well, anything that's local hosted on a port, I can then just bring up on another computer. So I'm curious, how does the framework that you have, is this something that could basically just be brought up in a browser, run localhost on my computer, and then
if you want,
have a wholesale connection to someone else, and then boom, we just have a conversation? And is it something that could be done A, through your infrastructure, or B, with just a direct peer-to-peer as well?
You can just do direct peer-to-peer. You know, like WebRTC is like the web communications that's used for.
Oh, that's
like,
a good point. Yeah.
Right, with everything, like from everything Zoom to Jitsi to like HiveTalk. Web, that kind of code, there's like, it's only like 100 lines of code to do. Like,
oh wow, really?
Web. It's so
interesting. Okay.
It's not complicated. That's why I think with a lot of the tech services, they just keep adding layer after layer after layer, probably to just track all their users. They're tracking and logging everything that you say, all the data, all the metadata, everything. And Like if you just want peer-to-peer, just run it straight over Tailscale for like two people or a few people. I think that works fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Hive Talk is serving a different purpose.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like more, think of it like the Twitter Spaces, but with
Yeah.
audio, with video. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like more like that. You know.
It's more for a kind of broadcasting and group engagement sort of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like more peer-to-peer group engagement versus like there is a broadcast mode in there, but you can do both. You can
Yeah.
do that and also like have a conversation with 5 or 6 people, and they can all screen share and share their YouTube videos or share files with each other. There's a whiteboard in there as well, so you can draw stupid pics if you want to draw stupid pics. Yeah, and there's also like an audio transcription. So like if you want to do auto transcription when someone else is talking, you can do that inside of HiveTalk, provided that your
Mhm.
browser allows for it. Um it doesn't have the kind of recording that we're doing right now where it's the local track splitting. Which, like I honestly don't know if somebody wants to do that, but you can record locally. So like if you want to record a session locally of somebody doing some sort of demo or workshop, you can do that. It saves locally to your drive, and then you can post it somewhere else. Um, yeah.
Sweet. Does that
So there's a
just
lot of features in there. Sorry.
um I was thinking about the recording just cuz the how difficult is the or have you explored the separate track recording out of curiosity? As an
I
editor,
have
it's very
not done it.
useful. Granted, often I
Yeah.
don't use it. I just take the joint recording because it's easy and I'm lazy. But it is also very useful to have. So I'm just curious what the difficulties of that are of keeping those things in sync and having multiple devices all recording.
I don't think it's going to be that difficult if you do local recording.
Okay,
But it's not built in. Like I didn't focus on that, you know.
gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I was just like
it's not
I
a
got
mission critical feature at all.
yeah, it
So.
wasn't a mission critical thing. So I was like, I'm not focusing on that. Usually with these podcasts, I know you guys like to have the separate local tracks for editing. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, we're gonna do this because you like to do editing and separate local, like crystal clear audio. Otherwise, I wouldn't have suggested this. We can go back to robot voice.
Man, that still annoys me. I just paid. I just paid for
Oh my
Zencaster.
god,
I'm so annoyed. Like they took
I'm so
my
sorry.
30 fiat poverty points
Oh my
and
god.
it could have been Bitcoin and
Yeah.
it gave me robot voice and bad recording. I'm so upset about this. I'm gonna be butthurt about this all night.
I'm sorry. You know what's really amazing though I have to say about Noster is the fact that you can do so much fundraising on platform, just through
Yeah,
zaps. I
yeah.
think that is the killer. Like seriously, like I'll tell you right now, 100% of all the zaps that came to me in the last a month and a half, ever since we launched Hive Talk,
Mm-hmm.
100% of this will go to supporting this server this year. So the cost of that will support the server this year. Any future zaps, I am not spending, you know, it's going to the server.
Yeah.
So, this is the ideal way to do like frictionless fundraising,
Yeah. A
without
thousand
having
percent.
to,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, that's like the best godsend ever because like it's hard to get started, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the grant system is tricky, I think, because I think there's some people who had some great projects or great areas that they were working on inside Noster, but they just told me that they didn't get their grants renewed. And I'm like, God, that's got to be so hard because I'm like, who's going to work on that now?
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's tough to call. It's tough to say because everyone works really hard. And I think a lot of people do an incredible job, but it's just like, like, how does this work?
Yeah.
It's like, what if I want to use that part?
Funding is such an issue. I really think
It's
this
so
is the
tricky.
issue. It is the issue. And I feel like a lot, like people are uncomfortable about it Like
Mhm.
they don't people are afraid to ask for money, and I can completely understand and identify with that because I have a problem asking for money, for charging for things, you know? So I get it, but I really think that onboarding people into Noster and having an easy way for them to receive their first sats or earn their first sats, I think that is a huge barrier that if we can figure out what that is, it solves such a huge resistance. It just like smooths out a huge issue in just onboarding and getting people to experience what this is and kind of like what the value of it is, and then figuring out how to fund these projects. Like there's so many things that, and maybe I want to ask you, get your just general opinion on this, of why so many projects stagnate, I guess. Like what do
Oh
you think
yeah.
it is that is caused just peer-to-peer in general, decentralized alternatives? Like why do they
Yeah.
all seem to die on the vine half done?
Are you, are you talking about Noster or are you talking about other
Just in
in
general,
general?
maybe
Oh.
you can use Noster as an example, like just because
Oh
it's
yeah.
recent and something you're familiar with. But
Yeah.
I'm also just curious your in general thoughts about this.
Oh, okay. So I can tell from Noster specifically because like up until this year I have not written a single line of Noster code. It's all been since 2021,
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3. Uh it's just been me observing it because I only
Yeah.
have X number of hours. So for me it's been reading a lot, observing a lot. There were a lot of really good uh, repositories that were built out on Noster early on, but it just like it was like flash and bang and it disappeared and like they were left out of date.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People were they got into it and then um, it's just their free time.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if there's no traction early on and there's no like okay there's some of them that people start complaining because they're like I'm using this library and the guy abandoned it. More happened, right? So there's a lot of
Ah.
frustration around it,
Yeah.
right? um it's because there are a couple of things. One is that it was moving so fast. It was just like I could not even keep up with it. Like every
Yeah.
single week, I was just like, I'm gonna die. I had to shut it off at one point because just going so fast. I'm like, whoa, like uh drinking from a fire hose, but like that fire hose just exploded, so it's even worse.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. Um, and it's like incentive for the developer. Why are they doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Is there traction? Is there in like are they doing it out of the fact that they really, need it themselves? Or are they just doing it as a showcase thing? Are they doing it because they need funding later on? Do they just want to make this into an actual um business?
Yeah.
That's another thing. Like I've had people tell me they're like, I would not be able to continue working on this if I did not get a grant. I'm like, fair enough. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot continue working on this unless I took VC money. Fair enough, right?
Yeah.
Um, there are very few people I will tell you that are like, oh, whatever, I can just keep doing this because I just can keep doing this,
Yeah.
because I
I
like
have all
doing
the
it.
time in the
There's
world
really
and I have nothing else that I want to do or spend that time on.
right.
Let me just donate all of my work to a whole bunch of people who are going to bitch about how the fact that it's too slow and there's a feature that they
Yeah.
don't have.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what's the real motivation behind it?
Yeah.
And I've also met like some people who are like not into Nostr, but it's like it's still too early for the average person, like the average user, I
Yeah.
think. And so
Still
there's like
awkward. It's
unrealistic.
still awkward.
It's still awkward, yeah. And there's like unrealistic expectations from like the average person. And so then people get frustrated because you're hit with these comments continuously going like blah blah blah. Why does this work?
Mm-hmm.
I have been very lucky because I've had some really great volunteers to help shield me from some of that customer like issue
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Um by the way, shout out to New One and Cloud Fodder and Sleepy, because you guys have all actually supported me and protected me from having to answer out a million questions. So that's another thing, right? It's like if you're just one developer and they're like, who else is going to back you up,
Yeah.
right? And I count my blessings, because in this particular case, like I launched High Talk and I just like got overwhelmed, and then I went and hid under a rock for a couple of days because it was just too many notifications. um so this is like one of those things. It's like you gotta have somebody to help you support all these people.
That's so funny. That's so true. It's just like having like just trying to run anything that people, even if it works, then people will use
oh
it.
yeah.
And then it's like having 6 email accounts to navigate through that have 50 new emails every day. And you're just like, no, I don't want to have any of this conversation. I don't care. I don't want to answer. Stop it. Oh.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Can I also have this feature and this feature and this feature? And I'm just like,
I'm so bad at that too. That's probably me. I do that to like math and them all the time. I'm like, by the way, here's just another thing. Here's just another thing. I'm sure you don't have like a list of 16,742 other things, but here's a 43rd.
yeah. So that's one of those things. And then it's there's a lot of thankless work, I think, in open source too. It's like if you have
Nature
a real reason. Yeah, it's like intrinsic desire. Like it has to be more than just for the money.
Yeah.
Like for example, I think there was a bit of a debate the other week when I said, Albie wanted Black Coffee, who's a developer, to work on Noster Wallet Connect and integrate it into Elembits, and then that didn't happen over like a period of months, and then it came to me and I was like, I'm busy, I can't do it. And then like we're both like, we're tapped out, and they put up a bounty for it. And I said, hey, someone should actually take a look into this if you're new into the space and you want to get some experience. And then I got a bunch of people complaining. They're like, that's too little money for me to do this. Oh, there's too much competition. That's not enough to pay rent. And I'm like, oh my God. So, there's all this whining about it. And I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, but that's not what the bounty is really about. Like people have asked me, like, how do I get involved? I'm like, because the hard part about this place is that it's like you entered a real roll time, like a real life role playing sci-fi, really bad sci-fi Star Wars novel, like where everyone's like shooting bullets at each other and laughing their faces off and having fun at the same time, but also like, getting stuck in a pile of goo over here. And it's hard to figure out where to start.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know where to start. Like what project do I work on?
Yeah.
Like what should I learn? There's so many things going on. It's just like every 5 seconds there's another thing that comes out. So usually, it's like, okay, well, what's your skill set, right? Okay, and then what are you interested in? And then like what is there that I should work on? And then I can understand there are a lot of people who are scared to work on these things because they're like, I don't know what they're like. Like that's not like open source is so hard because you're like, you don't know what you're walking into when you walk into a new project.
Yeah.
You don't know if they want what you're working on. I've seen this too. Like people are like come in and actually make a contribution, and it could be a good maintainer or it could be like a not so nice maintainer.
Yeah.
And I've been brushed off before as well. Like, well, we don't really need that here, so go away. Even though you looked at something that you think it might be useful. So the way I look at the bounties are, here's an opportunity for you to work on something, and like they actually want this.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, people are always concerned about.
It's a signal. It's a signal that says that the community has said, literally, we're thinking about this. This is what we want. If you were looking for something to contribute and work on, this is something people will be happy about. This is desired. Right. Yeah.
And then the other thing is like the competition is they're like, oh, there's going to be competition. I'm like, you guys don't understand how thin we are. Like there's not enough developers, you know?
Yeah.
There's like
There's not
bounties are sitting
10
there for months.
people. There's not 10 people all racing to work on getting the first implementation and then only one of them getting paid. It's everybody saying there's going to be competition and nobody is working on it.
Yeah, it's really like that. It's more like none of us have the time to work on it if we actually wanted to work on it.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Everybody's always working on something else. There's just 100 things. There's an unlimited number of things. It just, and what's funny is the more successful it is, and the more we figure out what to do with it, the bigger the number of projects get. And I feel like the projects grow in need way faster than the capacity to get them done does.
Yeah. And, you know, there's always projects where I say, hey, you know, here is a micro subset of another project. If you want to get your feet wet, no pressure, you can improve it by doing these things like XYZ. I'll list them off. And I tell someone that they're like, they want to be new in this space and they want to get their feet wet, do this, you know, because you then establish a track record. You know, if you're going to go look for employment, these are things I've done in open source to prove this is provable work. This is proof of work that, you know, I'm capable of contributing to open source projects.
Yeah.
But I think it's also very hard for people to do that. It's like it's a skill set of I think communication is really hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing, to like step up and ask those questions. A lot of people have difficulty with that.
Man, it's so taken for granted. It's so taken for granted. I think the people who don't work, like, don't think about managing people, managing a project, managing a team, that like that is one of the most critical skills. Like, and they just, all you have to do is get a project with 3 people and you get it. You get it, because 3 people is too many. That's when everything starts to have problems.
Yeah,
that's all it takes.
People are hard. It's hard, but you also need, like, as the project grows, you need more people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's just like, you know, I've watched, for example, I've watched Elements grow from like early days 2021 when it was just like Fiat Jeff and Ben Arc just trying to piece things together by themselves. That was a rough. That's time, wild. You know.
Yeah, it's crazy how far it's come. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, there'd be all these arguments about, you should do this. He's like, why don't you do that? You can make a monster project. I encourage you to do this. And the guy just walks off and never does anything.
I just wanted a bitch. Now you're making me feel like I got to do something. I'm out of here.
It's just like ridiculous, right? Yeah. So it's hard, you know, but I think, like, you know, some of these projects are incredible because I have, you know, had the, you know, pleasure and the honor to work with some of the really, really nice, you know, and very smart developers. And that's a treat, to be honest with you. It's really nice. And I wish more people knew about it. You know, people who are in it are actually pretty decent. There's very few toxic projects in the Lightning and you know, Bitcoin space.
That's really cool.
I don't know.
That's really
cool. I don't know all of Noster, by the way. I don't know all of Noster because I'm not deep into Noster, but I will say in a Lightning space for very nice, you know. And honestly, I think in Noster people have been very, very supportive. More so than any other place I've been in. And especially, like, people are more forgiving because they understand that everything is a work in progress. Yeah, there might be a little bit of trolling, but it's more like friendly trolling, not like, you know, malicious trolling. It's like, you know, we want to help you make this better, that kind of thing.
I think there's a lot better perspective. Like, as much as I shit on it, I just had a note the other day of everybody's so entitled, expecting everyone to build them free, open source, decentralized everything, and it's all going to work, and it's going to have the perfect UX. And if they ever have to cough up any money for it, they're pissed. But, you know, part of that was like a bit of a self-reflection, because I'll bitch about how, like, this Noster client takes way too long to load. I go in it
Yeah.
very like normie user experience, and that's kind of my thing to weigh it against. So part of it
Yeah.
was like bitching about other people. Part of it was just a bit of a, guys, sit down, shut up. Like, this is an enormous amount of work and everybody is building their asses off and you're expecting way too much, way too fast. Oh.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think generally
It's
there's a really good perspective. Like people know that this is a project and that people are working to make this work. And
right.
as rough around the edges as it is at times, I'm shocked by how well both Noster and the Pear based things just and Pear is far more mature in kind of like the underlying the time and the years that have been spent kind of putting all of these layers together to get it to work. But Noster has moved a lot faster, and the kind of development around it, like the number of people have seemed has a lot of momentum, it seems like.
Yeah.
But both have been substantially better than all of the things previously. It feels like we're getting further than we have in the past. Like, I feel more hope at solving these problems than I ever have. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And that's at least exciting. Is that just me, or do you feel that same way? Does it seem that way to you as well?
Oh, honey, like, did you see Noster in 2021?
Oh.
I mean, have you ever seen anything from there? Oh my god. it was so ugly. It was just a bunch of like not even npubs. It was just like the actual hex string. And then like no names and just
my god,
a bunch
that's right.
of, like,
I forgot about that. I did use it then. I did. I was there for like a week, and I think I have an old lost key somewhere. It's probably public.
The client was called Branley or something like that.
Oh,
Branley,
that's right.
That thing. Oh my
gosh. I forgot about that one.
I just remember looking at going, what the heck? I just thinking, what the heck? And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Somebody's actually making use of public-private keys. Woo! So I thought this is really cute. And then I started noticing, I don't know if people actually realize this with LM Bits, like there is a Noster relay and a Noster client built in to LM Bits as extensions.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I mean, Ben Ark. Well, because Ben Ark and Fiat Joff were the two who started this whole both of these things. Like Fiat Joff even wrote a Golang version of LM Bits, which is sort of archived at this point. But yeah, so like every step of the way, Ben Ark is like, I want to put this in some way, right?
Yeah.
And to this day, actually, I find it very useful because the Noster relay, which is an extension of LM Bits, I use it for testing on a regular basis. I'm like, oh, here, I can just have my, my cute little thing on the side and then not spam the network. Although the other day I did by accident. That's a different story. But yeah, it's nice to have that as a tool. Or if you just want a little private relay along with all the other tools that, LM Bits has to offer, it's really nice. You don't have to actually go run something separate.
This is the Swan Bitcoin app, and this is how easy it is to just buy Bitcoin whenever you're feeling like it. And I feel like it right now. And as it shows me right here, I still have $9,388 worth of my $10,000 of Bitcoin buying that has no fees whatsoever. And now I have $10 more worth of Bitcoin. I do this quite often. One of the really great things about Swan is the incredible number of resources they have for learning and understanding anything that you want to know about Bitcoin. And importantly, they're going to teach you why you should not trade. They're not going to encourage you to trade. They are Bitcoin only. If you're looking for an easy and reliable way to get into Bitcoin, if you're looking to put Bitcoin in your IRA, if you're looking to put Bitcoin in your business, if you're looking to do anything around getting on a Bitcoin standard or getting exposed to Bitcoin in your portfolio, check out swanbitcoin.com/guy is my special link, and you will find it very conveniently right in the show notes. I've been trying to figure out in our application how to do a Lightning integration, and maybe I need to look back at and think about LN-bits again, because I haven't gone back to LN-bits in a while.
Mm.
The one
Oh,
thing
you
that I
should.
was trying to use LN-bits for, and was the whole reason that I went to LN-bits originally, was trying to figure out how to do sub accounts so that I could
Mm-hmm.
have like my sister-in-law have a Lightning wallet that was just based off
Mm-hmm.
of mine and
Mm-hmm.
was a quote unquote sub account with its own balance. And she was just using my
Right.
channel. Basically, I was a tiny bank for her.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
and we had a bunch of different issues in just getting it connected. And after it, there wasn't a simple or obvious solution. I just kind of ran out of time fighting with it, and she wasn't in some I need a Lightning wallet today. Like she was just doing it because like it was fun and we were doing it. And so I never really came back to it and explored it in depth again. But now that we're building an application on the Pear stack, I want Noster login and I want Lightning. And I think Lightning is critically important for a number of different integrations. Obviously, like custodial for people who are using a bunch of Lightning address things and stuff on Noster. And I think it's the lowest barrier. But I want to have kind of optionality. And I think experimenting with monetization. How do you monetize something with free software? And how do you create funding around the success of your app? And that's one of the things that we're doing. I'm building the app to solve my problem for files. But and maybe I'll just kind of get your experience on this as well and your thoughts on this. I want to know first how easy and to what degree is Noster login, Noster being the dominant way that people log in and interact with it. How easy was it to implement? And what was the third thing? We'll start there.
LN-bits. LN-bits monetization.
LN-bits monetization. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. It was
Yeah.
how are you thinking about monetization? And
Oh yeah. Okay.
what's
Sure.
your strategy and or what are your
Right.
intent to try options, I guess you could say, or models?
Um, what for all the things or just Hive Talk? Like there's
Uh
so many different ways.
let's start with Hive Talk, and then I'm curious of just like your big picture, because I think this is our problem of how do we
Right.
monetize and make Noster sustainable and the client
Yeah.
sustainable and the Pear
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
sustainable. I think this is one of the core problems.
Okay, I'm taking my dev hat off and then
Okay.
I'm gonna put my business hat
Brainstorm
on.
hat. Yes.
Brainstorm hat. All right, let's go back to the much overlooked plebnet.dev.
Mm-hmm.
That is a self-sustaining business model right there, which use own bits. So it was a membership, where people actually got access to services.
Mm-hmm.
It was a club, that kind of thing. Everything runs on also donations, and that pays off whatever your utilities are. So that's a business model in itself. Plus, we
Mm-hmm.
also sold swag. So I also designed a bunch of swag,
Yay.
and the whole point,
Everybody loves
the
swag.
designing all. Yeah, it was so much fun. That was actually the best. That was like the most enjoyable part was designing swag, to
That's
be honest
funny.
with you. I mean, I love graphic design. That's another thing I dabble in. Oh, I also designed the High Talk logo, by the way.
Oh, did you?
No way. Yeah, no AI there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's funny because like people were like, "Oh, what's your favorite part about High Talk?" I said the logo, the design on the front page, the little helmet. I'm like, yeah. Anyway, the what do you call it? So that was like, okay, I use Ellen Bits to do payments, and also for shopping.
Mm-hmm.
So the shopping part was, I mean, this is going to go down a very interesting path because I think there's some projects worth mentioning to you that we'll touch on as well. Um, I think during that process, I learned, okay, so how do we make a margin by selling swag.
Hmm.
And there are print on demand shops which can do it. But then you have to bridge over from the fiat, from the lightning stuff to the fiat.
Yeah.
So that's the whole accounting stuff. You have to keep that separate unless you make your own. Which, now I understand why people say, oh, we gotta do localized, print your own stuff, manufacture your own stuff, and then sell that for lightning, which is the way to go if you
Yeah.
can do that. If you have your own equipment, your own print shop, fantastic, do it.
Yeah. Great. Another project. I need that.
Great, another project, right?
Yes.
Or you can be like me, which was like, okay, I don't know if anyone's actually going to buy this stuff, but I'm just going to print on demand.
Hmm.
And then, on the front, what I ended up, so it was experimental because one of them was just fiat, straight print on demand is very easy. You just upload your design, they do all the back end stuff for
Hmm.
you. You just go home and you take whatever the profit margin is,
Yeah.
because you can set that. That's very easy, but everyone still pays in fiat. The more difficult model is to have like a lightning shop, which is
Hmm.
very interesting. Like, because I went down this rabbit hole too, because I was like, well, what's it like to actually have something paid it for in lightning? So I did try a setup on Shopify, where you could take payments, in lightning. So I think so. BTC Pay had
In
a plugin. I don't know.
Shopify?
Oh yeah, yeah. So you can do this, and you're like looking at me like, what? Shopify has like a $5 pop per month pop-up store where you can like,
Interesting.
you know, yeah. So you can do all these experiments fairly cheaply just to see how it goes.
Hmm.
And so like if you want to integrate with BTC Pay, I think there's a way to do that. And then I think CoinOS also has integration if you want to do that.
I forget about CoinOS. I forget about. I've got to
Yeah,
put that in my list because I use them just for their
right?
classic wallet for so long.
Yeah,
They were my
yeah,
Lightning Liquid Bitcoin bridge. Um,
yeah.
it was
Very
so
quiet
easy. It
company.
was God. It was so easy. It
Yeah,
was the dream experience for it. And even much as I
yeah.
like Aqua, I still think CoinOS was the easiest and simplest thing. And it just kind of it's not really their focus anymore. But uh, that's one that I forget. That's one that I forget. I thank you for mentioning that one.
I went through the whole, okay, so the interesting path of how I got here too, and how I discovered CoinOS was, uh, early, like starting late last year. Like Albie came to me and said, "Hey, can you integrate us into LMBits?" And I'm like, "Okay, maybe I can find someone." And that fell through. That
Yeah.
person was like, "I can't do it." So I'm like, "Okay, fine, I'll do it." So then that sort of sparked off this chain of other ones because then I integrated. So Albi is integrated into Elements. And then ZBD, I also integrated that into Elements. I like ZBD's infrastructure, very
Mm-hmm.
solid, very well documented, very professional. And then who else did I integrate? I integrated Blink, Blink Wallet,
Yeah.
non-US.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then the other one was Phoenix D. So the server that you can run by yourself, like
Yeah.
Phoenix Wallet. But so I did those four integrations, and like every step of the way, I was like, okay, so which one can I use for a shopping plugin? And there wasn't one.
Yeah.
So that's why I went down this route, and I was like, how does this work? So that was like interesting. Um, I think it would be great to have more Lightning shopping experiences. This whole entire circle of monetization using Lightning and keeping it within that circular economy is, I think, critical to growing the network as well. Not just the Zap part, but being able to
Mm-hmm.
sell, items. And there's a project that's working on it on Noster. I think it's called Shopster, but it's very early stage. And
Shopster. I'm gonna write that one
Shopster,
down too.
yeah,
Shop.
but it's super early stage, and I think that they have a lot of growing to do, but they're also focused on this track of being able to sell things on Noster for Lightning. Um,
This is
Eventually,
great.
it'll be
This
more
is pretty simple.
interconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can go down this, like this is a whole entire different world from all the stuff we talked about before,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also very interesting. And then Lightning Network Stores actually has the listings for all these other shops online which accept Lightning as payments, so it helps with discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now it's really hard to discover a lot of these shops,
Yes.
um,
No, that's
and the same thing with
absolutely true. Like trying to
yeah,
find them is a big thing.
right, yeah. I mean, I wish there was more. I wish there was a better way for people to know about these like portals,
Mm-hmm.
or a better way to find them. Probably I mean, the only way I know of to really advertise a shop from like the ground up is you have to go on Noster, and then you have to build up a social media presence, and then you have to blast it out, and then you
Yeah.
have to hope that somebody bigger than you is going to go blast it out in order
Yeah.
to get more visibility. So it's still pretty rough right there, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
that circle. Oh, it's obviously easier with you because you have a bigger presence, but I think it's very difficult for a lot of small shops when they first start. Like, how do you get that traction,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
um
100%. Like I will constantly, and it's
yeah.
funny how often I will come across something like Hive Talk. The first time I bumped into Hive Talk, this fell into this exact thing. Except for the fact that I'm in a bunch of different rooms. I come across you in a bunch of different places, so I was easily reconnected to it. But I could have seen very easily, and it's extremely frequent that I will hear about a project or it will come across my feed, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's cool." And I think I'm going to go check that out later. And then I forget about it. Or I forget the name
Oh,
and I can't find it now.
right.
And there's no
Yeah.
reconnection. There's no clear way to save. It still kind of has that ephemerality that like something like Twitter has, where if it's not recent, it's gone, you know?
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
something there that I really wish I could save, organize, kind of like I like sure bookmarks, but not quite like bookmarks where it's just like a feed of, a chronological thing. I want to save them like stores and experiences and tools. I want a toolbox, you
Yeah,
know?
you like that
I love
highlighter tool.
highlighter. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Highlighter is
Yeah.
fascinating. And it is another one that I used for a little while, then forgot about for like
Uh-huh.
3 or 4 months, and then came back to it and it was completely different. And I was like, Pablo, what the hell? What is all this stuff? But highlighter is fantastic. I love highlighter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of stuff flies by really quickly.
Yeah. It's easy to
Yeah, so
lose
we're
stuff.
talking,
Easy to lose
right,
stuff.
absolutely. Like I have to like, just like you, I have to catch it, then I have to like copy it and then paste it into like a notepad or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also really hard. A lot of things are getting developed, but they get developed and then they get dropped too.
That's true. That's
That's
true.
that's another issue. So like, one of the things I want to emphasize is that I don't like doing that. So I don't plan on dropping Hive Talk anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say that because a lot of people are like, "Oh, how long is that going to be there?"
Yeah.
Believe me, I'm trying to build enough runway for the next 3 years. That's the idea.
That's cool.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I like long runway. I don't like this kind of artificial growth, short pop, make the left turn and then go downhill and like
Yeah.
oh, we raised our Series D. Okay, we're now exiting. Bye.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hate that. I really do.
I think a lot of that goes from people who are trying to build something that they think somebody else is going to like, and
Yeah.
or is going to be cool to somebody else or for some particular situation, rather than something that solves their problem. And
Right.
I was in a conversation recently with somebody who was actually, I think it was in like the pair development room or something on Key. But somebody was basically just like asking what they should build. And like I was interested and kind of, hopeful in the sense, it's like, okay, there's people here and they're just literally looking for things to build. But all I could think is, if that doesn't just explode and have like tons of people interested in it, that's going to be a dead project because they're not building it because they need it or it's something that they feel like they want to build or they're driven to build. Everybody's just kind of like scouring to pick something up random, which might be somebody
Right.
else's idea. And I think that's how you get so much stagnancy and, like I said earlier, dead on the vine sort of projects.
Yeah. Well, there's also like a lot of people coming into software. Okay, like let's put it this way. When I got into software, it was not the cool thing.
Yeah.
Like only the nerds went to it, and like people were like, why, who the hell cares, right?
The nerds in
And
BitKarrot.
like and like, they're like, who the hell cares? Nerds on the and then and then there was like a trend in the last decade where people were like, you better get into coding because that's where all the money is. You have to chase the money. I'm like, oh my God, okay, you're not gonna make it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like if you're only here for the money, like sorry. I just think that's just a bad motivator. You have to intrinsically like it because you want to work on it.
Yeah.
You know, like if you are into it because you find it interesting, you will go forever. It's not like, you're getting it shoved down your throat so you can like, who knows, buy your Bentley or your Maserati.
I'm gonna get a Lambo.
Right,
I'm gonna
exactly,
build an
right?
open
So
source
yeah.
project and get a Lambo. No. No, you're not.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why
I've had a
crypto.
lot of
That's why
people.
crypto worked. That's why everybody went crypto, man. You can just print a
Yeah,
token,
yeah.
and if your idea is even like remotely good, it's like a shit ton of people just buy your bullshit token.
Yeah.
I can see why it happened.
At least a dozen people have come to me saying like, I want to get a job in the Bitcoin industry because Bitcoin is like rich. I'm like,
Well, that's not
anyway,
gonna
going
work
back to
out.
the whole, yeah, that's not gonna work out. Anyway, going back to the whole Elements monetization thing, do you know that they're actually now paid extensions? Like, you can be a developer and you can actually like charge for an extension you wrote for
No,
Elements. Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah, it is cool, right? Because that means
That's
like that's
great.
self. Yeah, it's like self-perpetuating. So
Yes.
like it makes total sense that like Ben Ark talked about how Ellen Bits is going to have a WordPress like model.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're familiar with WordPress, like one of the biggest like extensions of WordPress is WooCommerce, the shopping cart.
Yeah.
For it is like pretty solid. Like that software's been running for well over like almost 2 decades
I was
at
about to
this
say
point.
long time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not a small industry. It's like
Mm-hmm.
$500 billion turnover per year.
That's nuts.
It's
That's
like
wild. Yeah.
yeah, and people don't realize it's about the same size as the Apple App Store industry.
No kidding. That puts it into perspective.
Yeah, people don't realize this because this is like small business. Like
Yeah.
how I said the other day, I was like, small business is actually big business cumulatively.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That is what I was referring to. That was, there's so many small businesses, turning over millions of dollars in revenue
Mm-hmm.
that are running that platform. So if you can imagine, you project out into the future, let's say their businesses all running, LM Bits to run their e-commerce platforms. There you go.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential right there. I mean, maybe it's not necessarily LM Bits, but like something that provides a lightning platform for payments, for rapid payments, that might be it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like, to me, it's a signal in the last like 6 to 9 months how much demand from existing providers ask for integration into LM Bits.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than I thought it would be. It was just like one after another, and I was just like, what the heck is going on here? So
That's pretty cool, actually.
yeah, I mean, you can take your pick then,
Yeah.
and like in the case of, I understand with Blink and like South markets, like South Africa is in particular, there's demand there because they're building out their circular economies very rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they're going to want that infrastructure because your local business that might, like a restaurant or let's say like a clothing shop, they're going to want the infrastructure to sell their goods. And if they're a growing circular economy, then they're going to want to have a shop for that. And then they're going to want a back end. It might be custodial, non-custodial, but they're going to pick the option that supports supports something for that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So and you also want something fairly lightweight.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
So So these things all add up, and I think there's increasingly like I don't know what the visibility is, but I think there's increasing like especially smaller, um, remote economies that they're going to want something like this, especially where like traditional payments are not viable. They're just too expensive to get your foot in their door for banking,
Yeah.
for traditional
Where the
banking.
infrastructure just isn't there, but you have a
Yeah.
data connection, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that makes a big difference. And I'm curious too for LM bits, is there any like splitting of like if somebody puts something on and then sells, I really think the automatic splitting, the prisms,
Oh
are
yeah.
a super underutilized tool, because if I put my plugin on LN bits, I would love to have 5% of it go to LN bits automatically. Like just like
I think yeah. I think there is a plugin that really does that. Like that's been around for at least a year.
oh really? In LN bits?
Yeah. It's one of the extensions. I think one of the bolts extension guys wrote it.
Split payments across wallets, is that this one?
Um Forgot the name of it.
Crypto Graffiti
I
is
think
idea
it's
sponsor, Fiat Jaff developer, Danny Prusnak,
I think
Talos.
DNI wrote it. DNI
DNI,
probably
yeah,
wrote
the
it.
DNI's third one
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, DNI is the guy who wrote it. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Is this is does any of this, like, does LM Bits have a monetization strategy? Like, do they quote unquote
Yeah,
charge or
they have software as a service, so you can like pay them to run elements in the cloud for you.
okay? See, I did not know this.
Yeah, so there's
How
that.
do I know so little about this?
Because it's all under the radar, I guess. I don't
It
know. Like
really is.
I
It's something that I just kind of end up going back to and exploring again, and it's different, you know.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I gotta tell you one thing. Like the with most open source projects, people come and go.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just don't stick around. And there's been a lot of remodeling in the last year and a half, like a lot of remodeling. So it's a lot better than it was before. And Pavel Rusnak is one of the code maintainers. The CTO of Trezor Wallet.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't recognize the name, but
yeah. Well, I mean, like he's pretty damn good at what he does. So I'm like, okay, you know, here, remove my code, Pavel, please. Well, actually, I like that. I actually like having like really good quality people to work with, and I like having someone like that to come look at my stuff because you never know. Like is it lightning's different, right?
mm-hmm.
So you never know. So I like to have someone who actually has done a lot of work with that. And what was the other thing I was gonna say? Uh, yeah, there's a vetted extensions list, I think. Oh yeah, so the whole software as a service model is something that we're considering for Hive Talk. So
Okay,
basically,
interesting.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
if somebody wants like their own version, like we'll run it, and they don't want to set up that, we will actually offer that. If you want to pay as a service to have your own Hive Talk server.
That's cool.
Um,
Yeah.
and one of the guys who's helped me quite a bit for the relay stuff, he runs relay tools. So this guy on Noster called Cloud Fodder, quite a good engineer. He's made it very easy for people to spin up Noster relays, and
Mm-hmm.
it's also pay as a service. So like you can pay him, I think it's like 12,000 sats per month, and then he will spin up a stir fry Noster relay for you with your like customizations, and then you can configure it because he built a whole dashboard, so you can like make your own custom configuration setup for that relay.
That is cool.
Yeah, and so we're running one with him right now, and that's one way what we're looking at monetizing. The other way is to make another private, like super private version of Hive Talk, where like nobody even knows that you're there. except for you and whoever you're in the room with,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be sort of like pay to play, effectively. Um, I don't know if I don't know if there's like market demand, but it'll be interesting. Mostly, there's more privacy requests from people who want it effectively. That's what it seems to be. Like it seems to be like people who are in Noster and people who are really deep into Bitcoin Lightning want more privacy
Yeah.
than the average person does.
Yeah, that's definitely a selling point. Like I go back and forth between, what degree should these tools target an average audience versus really kind of niche down and target something that explicitly a Bitcoin audience or a Noster audience or a dissidence sort of audience would value, would want. And there's an interesting dynamic there because like Heat is a decent example. Is I feel like Heat is actually more trying to target. I think they're just kind of assuming, and I think for good reason, that kind of the Bitcoiners will just kind of find it on their own. And yes, they've slightly targeted like telling Bitcoiners about it, but I think they're more interested in trying to get people who are coming to the internet for the first time, because there's so many people there's like 2 billion people expected to join the internet for the first time, and to basically prevent them from going to the centralized closed systems and giving a peer-to-peer option to them out the gate, kind of setting the
Yeah.
stage of the expectation of privacy and the expectation of control over the conversation at the start, so that suddenly the giant centralized surveillance system is awkward. It's something that is different than their normal experience. But in that, Bitcoiners have, and people who are on Noster and stuff right now have a very different set of, I need this or I want this level. Like it's incredible how much people will get very angry or very passionate about one minor privacy trade-off or one minor trade-off with, I guess, control over something. You know what I mean? Like everybody is
Yeah.
very personal, I guess, is the word to use about what decisions they are in charge of, and get very, very defensive if it feels like somebody took it from them, where there's a whole other audience that just doesn't want anything to do with it, that you have to do those things for them because otherwise they're just like confused. The more optionality you give them, the more confused they are. So there's a weird balance to strike, and especially in open source, I can see that being nothing but conflicts all over the place.
It's a little weird. That's why I wasn't sure if I don't know. I'm still up in air whether or not I want to do that or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just additional overhead, but I think some things can be taken.
Yeah.
Like some things which are unnecessary tracking. And it would slim down the code base considerably as well. Less to maintain is better. Just in my head.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and just like if people use it, that's great. If it facilitates what people are trying to do, that's even better. What was I gonna say? Business models, other business like opportunity models which have come up. One very interesting project I thought you might be into is still being developed.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Sov.biz.
Sov.biz.
Biz, yeah.
I've got so many links for this one.
Guy,
I'm going to have to Sov.biz. All right.
It's still work in progress. I don't think he's finished because I have been nagging the guy. I said, hey, when you're done with your thing, because his is supposed to be a flat file based version of Shopify.
Okay.
So very slimmed down, no database, but just like flat file and very lean, but runs on Noster and um, purchases should be paid in Lightning, and um, his name, I think his username is Sync, but he's been working on this for a while, and it's a very interesting project because I really want to drop Shopify. I want to drop the centralization stuff and never
Yeah.
use his, because then it's tied into Noster, it's tied into like, Lightning. It's more native, and it's the most important thing is that it's super lightweight,
Yeah.
you know and it doesn't have all this headache. Like, for example, I placed a test order on Shopify to myself, and they are asking me to go, like, you need to register to pay taxes. I'm like, this is a
Oh
test order
my
to myself.
God.
Yeah,
Oh
that
my
kind of stuff.
God. I would want to pull my hair out. I would just be like, what?
Yeah.
Ah.
It's like, this is like insane.
The
I'm
frictions,
like,
they're
there's,
everywhere. Like, what
there's no
happened
way
to
to turn
making
on
stuff
either.
just work and making
Yes.
it clean? Like, there's so much, there's so much
Mm-hmm.
shit in everything. Everything's too convoluted.
Exactly. It's like they don't want you to. I feel like it's a war on small business, to be honest with you. Like
Yeah.
they want to kill small business. They want everyone to be working in these large centralized silos. And then they want to control everybody what they think about. So like there's no innovation.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me because um yeah, like I think a lot people have said that during the pandemic, a lot of small businesses had to close. And
Dude, it's like 40%. It was like 40% of small business across the US, man. That
yeah,
that's
that just
awful.
hurts.
That's so
Yeah.
awful. And I cannot believe how hand wavy and just dismissive people
Yeah.
were about it. It's just like, well, if it saves a grandma. I was like, I'm just
Yeah, it's all politicized in that sense. It feels like,
so
you know,
awful.
yeah, it's pretty bad. But that's also the thing is like when everything becomes siloed into a big tech or a big pharma or big corporation of some sort, like new and creative ideas just tend to die
Yeah.
like really fast, and everything is about conformity and like this whole concept that what a lot of Bitcoiners want are sovereignty and freedom, that also tends to die really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I think projects like, Noster are encouraging this, pushing the opposite direction, but it's also hard for people who don't understand this side to like accept it. So it's like it's very interesting because I get hit from both sides. Like I talk to people from, both outside and inside of Noster, and there's days where I'm just like I don't I'm just getting conflicting opinions from both sides because the normie stacker uh Bitcoiner out there
Mm-hmm.
says I just bought everything and I left it on Coinbase and it hasn't moved. It's like what's lightning? What's
Oh my
lightning in yours?
God. No, I know. I get it all the time. All the time, man. I cringe. I cringe.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, that and also like I think people, it was interesting today. Like there was a post that came out, like people were flipping out. I was getting messages in my, you know, on Noster. People were like, "What's going on with Albi? Why are they removing the custodial wallet?" Like, I was just like, "They're not. They're not. They're doing something different." Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of knee jerk reaction because of the whole samurai incidents in April, and then who left the United States? Like Phoenix said bye bye,
Yeah, they
and
were
Wallet
out. That was like my main
Satoshi
wallet
said,
too. My main mobile.
yeah, they're like bye bye.
Yep. Peace.
So it's like you got what for most of the wallet companies, it's been either been the need to KYC,
Mm-hmm.
like Strike and Cash App, they all KYC, or you leave the United States,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because like Albi has done a completely different model. They're like, and I know about this going back about 9-10 months when I talked to Quentin. I was like, what is your plan? What are you guys going to do? Because you are a custodial wallet right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, we're going to do Albi Hub. And I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. But this is probably the one way that you can get people away from custodial and towards self sovereignty. Like it is a nice step off. I don't know if you heard about Alby Hub.
I don't know much about it.
Um,
I heard talking about Alby Hub, but I couldn't tell you what exactly the details.
okay, so what they did is they're running. So you know about voltage, right? You can
Yeah,
run.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, so what they're doing is they're doing like a slimmed down version of Voltage. So where effectively you can run the node on their cloud infrastructure, but you hold the keys and then you also are in charge of opening and closing your channels. And
Huh.
it's just basically a point and click interface. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah,
No,
right?
that's smart.
So
That's really smart.
it's smart.
Yeah.
They charge a fee, but it's like a very small fee compared to like Voltage. Like I think Voltage, if it's a paid service right now, I mean, correct me if it's wrong, it's like $25 a month.
I don't
And that's
know. I
kind of
haven't checked
steep.
it in a while.
Let's see. I know I checked it the other day. I think it's $25 a month. Yeah, there's a free version, and then the next jump up is $25 a month.
Okay.
And that's pretty steep for somebody who's not always using Lightning, right?
Yeah, if you're trying to get somebody to just kind of
Yeah.
like test something out or explore a wallet, like Voltage is
Yeah.
very, if you have a business and you know you're using Lightning and you know you need it and you just want something like reliable and easy to set up, okay, it makes sense justifying, but it's not in a play with, right? Anything that's
It's not.
$25 a
Yeah.
month is not a just play with this really quick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And the same thing with BTC Pay Server. I really love BTC Pay Server and I love what they've done with the project,
Mm-hmm.
but it was costing me. Like I think at that point I was paying almost $20 a month to run it,
Mm-hmm.
And I was
I
just
think
like,
that's about what I get on
even
Lunanode. It's
yeah,
it's
and
something like that.
I was just like I wasn't really using it that much, That's the
Yeah.
whole thing. I was like, okay, this is for fun, right? I'm burning $20 a month for like not really doing much with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so the thing, that's the reason why I kind of rolled towards Ellen Bits is because of the fact that that was like $5 or less VPS. And then
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't want to really go all in, or if my Lightning node was down, or I didn't have time to manage it, I could just click it over to like a custodial wallet if I needed to,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it has that option and go back, like these Lightning nodes in those days was just like it was a lot of work to manage them. Sometimes it's not always going to be running. So, but at least this is a lot more cost effective
Mm-hmm.
at like a $5 VPS versus $20 VPS for just small things, especially if you're just experimenting. And I think now with this, option where Alby's providing all of the infrastructure, you manage all the channels, just point and click,
Mm-hmm.
and you pay them a small fee, which is probably less, I think. What's like 20,000 sats or 10,000 sats or something like that?
Yeah, 10,000
I
sats is
don't
like
remember.
$5. That's not, so
Yeah.
20 would be 10.
Okay, there you go. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for like someone who's going to be using Lightning on a regular basis, that would be like much more reasonable, but not like overkill,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Yeah.
Now I'm gonna have to try this one out too. Man, I have so many things. It's so impossible to keep up with all this stuff. And see, this is like another great
I
example
know.
of how many things. I mean, luckily I have like my AI is gonna listen through this and find all the links, but find all the things that I need to link. I mean, but
Yeah.
this is like another great example of like how quickly I could lose all of these services after trying them out and why I still just need. I wish I had a good idea for solving that toolbox problem, is where that there was something cohesive in the Noster experience that let me save a tool so that I wouldn't lose it, or I could, like you said, see somebody when they go live on Hive Talk and I'd be like, oh yeah, Hive Talk, I did that with this other person. And uh same thing with Flare and all of those things. That I really think there's something there in being being able to refresh or be connected to a service that is built on Noster through Noster.
One thing that I didn't really dig into much, but I'm a little bit more curious now that you mention that
Mm-hmm.
is NVK's unleashed, sorry, ugh, I can't even say anything right now. Unleash.chat, right? His
Yeah.
AI has a Noster, like
The
search
Noster search.
Noster.
Yeah, I've used it a number of times. Yeah. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I'm wondering like how effective it is as like give me a daily digest of most important things or like digest of the last X days, that kind of thing. If you're not looking at every day, you kind of want to know what's like been the hot topics or what things that you
Hmm.
should pay attention to. And I don't know how good it is, but if that works, that's great, you know?
Yeah, there was when I was using it, I was kind of using it for just generic search. Um and it might depend on which model I'm using. I haven't explored it well enough to give you a comparison if I'm like choosing different models or if the Noster search has one already selected. I can't even remember. But I do remember that I felt the results were more literal rather than kind of like not like it's like I was just typing it into Google or Ask Jeeves and it was just giving me the keyword search, but very direct to what I was saying rather than what I was meaning. You know what I mean? Like almost like there
Yeah.
was like a lot of keyword attachment to it. So that's something I need to explore a little bit more. And I'm curious how if there's like a model selection for that one specifically. I can't remember and how that works out. Maybe it was just that I was using old version of Mixtral or something instead of Llama 3, and so I was getting bad results.
So like if you had to pick an AI, which AI would you use for like,
For
for
open
example,
source,
like High Talk? Yeah, for anything, yeah.
my for the proprietary, I have really kind of switched over to Claude now.
Oh,
I
okay.
really like Anthropic and the Claude 3.5 Sonnet, I believe is what it's called. Is their newest model. It is really good. It is really good. But for open source, it would definitely be Llama 3. Um,
Llama 3.
yeah, Llama 3 is a good one. And I try to run the biggest one I can get. I think there's a 30 billion Llama 3, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's one of the ones I have. I don't know. There are so many freaking models and everything has like 6
Yeah.
different quantized versions of it.
But like what do you use it for? Do you use it for like searching for information or you use it for like something else?
Searching a lot. Mostly working with transcripts in the show to pull information out of it. Like I have my little
Mm.
scribe drop, which uses Whisper to transcribe any audio. So as soon as I'm done with this, will be a great example. Is I'm gonna hit stop recording. I'm gonna download it, and then literally I'm just gonna drag and drop it onto my little icon, and then it just runs Whisper on it, makes a transcription file, and then saves it right there with the same name as a text file right next to the audio file. And then I use that text file, and I do that for so many things. Like I make text of everything. I listened to a AI episode with damn it, what that guy, the guy who made Fabric, um, which is something I haven't explored enough because time, who has it? And
Right.
but one of the things he talked about was, or an idea that he shared was something called a world of text. Is that get everything recorded because you can turn all of it into text. And if you can turn it all into text, you can do so many different things with it. And getting like breaking down an idea, like my two sats videos, I'm not sure if you've seen those. And I'm doing these little pair report shorts as well for this show. But have you seen the two sats thing, like the give a shit matrix and the why your dollar ain't shit, those sorts of things?
I saw one of them, I think, a while back. I think it was on Twitter, but not the other ones.
Gotcha. I think I've done like 4 of them or something. But the way I actually have like ideated, like working through that process, is I've literally done a show. I'm like, I have a topic in my mind. I'm like, okay, I want to talk about this idea, and I want to try to get this concept across to somebody. And so I do an episode and I literally bang out like an hour guy's take. I just kind of brain dump everything that I'm thinking about this idea. Then I do my scribe drop and I transcribe it. and then I take first I just take the big file of the full text and I look through it and I just start editing. I just start cut. And I just yank out everything that's like repetitive or a tangent that's not necessary. And I try to narrow it down. And then when I have, half of it or a third of it, that's when I start handing it over to AI and I say, give me the serious bullet points, pull out the best analogy, like that sort of thing. And I usually do like a bunch of different iterations and change how I ask it just to see what kind of results it gets until something kind of feels like it clicks. And then I just keep narrowing that down until I have like 4 minutes. And
wow.
And then I try to create the most succinct, clear argument for that idea as I possibly can. And I try to make everything into text because there's just so many things I can do with it. I have AI basically write 80% of my show descriptions now. That one's usually Claude because you need a really big model to actually get like a good result for it. And I put together like a really solid prompt for getting it to tease out an interesting description rather than just like you talked about this and you talked about this and you talked about this and you should buy a cold card. I take some tweaking with the prompt to get it to understand what you want. But they've increasingly gotten to the point where I don't even edit them that much. Like I usually do. They're usually like a little bit repetitive. Sometimes it sounds very much like this revolutionary episode of this show. It's like really media-esque. It's like feels like an advertisement and it's like yuck. ChatGPT does that worse than Claude. Claude is better at the tone. And I'll almost always cut it down. I get like 6 sentences and I'm like, this needs to be 3. But I have been increasingly impressed. And there have been a couple of times where kind of the framing or the question that Claude asks to try to like entice or lead the audience to the description of what we talked about is actually something I hadn't thought of and is better than the approach that I was thinking specifically. And I'm like, oh, snap.
Awesome.
And then I'll just kind of like tweak it and make it sound like, put it in my language,
Right.
But yeah, I use it for a lot of stuff.
AI has come so far in like the last couple of years.
It
I
really
remember
has.
you were like it's crazy because I remember you telling me like 2 years ago, you're like, aren't you going to use this? You should really use this. I'm like, yeah. I was like, oh my God. And I started using it and it's like accelerated things by like 2 to 5 times, sometimes 10 times.
Yes.
In like multiple areas. It's insanity. And I'm just sitting here thinking, yeah, this is really going to shift a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like a lot of junior level jobs are going to go away, like gone.
And it's going to happen really quick.
Yeah, people are going to have a hard time adjusting. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I think like I'm so hopeful. I'm so hopeful about all this stuff. I'm so hopeful about Pear, or about the Pear stack in general and Noster and AI. But I also just realize how insanely aggressive the changes are going to be. And especially the changes that are happening kind of on the centralized platform side and how much, as every day goes by, how much we have to build more on Noster or build more Pear apps to get around the new problem that the platform has caused. And it's like, oh, great. Now I have to build a calendar. Oh, great. Now I have to be, like it just, we're constantly getting more work because they keep throwing flack and ruining everything that was working for us in the old system. It drives me crazy. God, it's going to be a mess.
It's awful. Yeah. Like, was it you or somebody who was saying that I couldn't follow somebody on Twitter the other day?
That was me. I went to Twitter. I hadn't been on Twitter in like 2 weeks or something like that. I mean, I'd gone and answered a couple DMs, but I hadn't done anything, hadn't followed anybody. And I don't even remember who I was following now. It was just like a post. somebody was mentioning somebody, and I tried to follow him, and it said, you can't do that right now. You have been limited. Check you've violated, and please read our terms and following conditions or some bullshit. And I was just like, it's always a generic error. It's always they never explain it. The same thing happened when I got shadow banned on there. And I was just like, I was here for 15 minutes. And I've been banned. I've been limited for I don't even know what I did. Why the fuck did I come over here?
Yeah, did you see Naval?
I'm so sick of this
Naval's
shit.
tweet?
Yes.
Crazy. Did you see Noster serves as a credible backup plan when government seize or ban X?
Yes.
I'm guessing he's referring to the whole Euro Parliament fight with Elon or something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that's pretty legendary.
Bad.
That's pretty epic.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just like, oh my God, more incentive to go build faster in Nostr. Because, there's going to be a moment where people just get up and they can't take it anymore. And they're like, I'm coming over.
Yeah.
And
1,000%.
I'm just like, that's going to happen. There's
going to
be
ready.
A tipping point. Exactly. And then we're like, oh, forget it. We're not going to be on X. We're coming over to Nostr.
Your Hive Talk fees are going to go through the roof. Oh man. Oh my God. It is 12:45. How did that happen?
Okay. I don't know how that happened.
How did that happen?
You better save the recording before it disappears.
Yes, I should. Okay. All right. We will close this one out. Thank you. I had no idea it was 12:45. I thought it was like midnight. I was like, okay, we're like an hour and a half.
Time flies when you're having fun,
dear
right?
God. All right. Well, I guess we'll end this on very bullish about Noster, very bullish about Pear, very bullish about all of this stuff. And there are still just an enormous amount of projects, an enormous amount of work to do. But as we mentioned earlier, I think we're further along and we're closer to kind of where that dream of these systems, I guess, is than we've ever been. There are so many other tools that I've wanted to use and wanted to do the things that these things finally do. So it's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening.
And if anybody wants to help out, my door is always open.
Yeah. Definitely check out hivetalk.org. Where else can they find or check out your projects? What was the other one? The plebnet plebnet.dev. Is that right?
Yeah. You can also go to my GitHub, but the best way to find all the links are off of primal.net/BitKarrot with a K. And there's like an entire link tree of everything that I work on.
Okay.
So
sweet.
It's not just those two things. I'm probably going to focus more on Hive Talk, but there's also tons of other small projects. Like if you want to get involved, please feel free to DM me anytime. My door's open. There's lots of things. Anybody's welcome to come help out if they want to help out. It's all open source anyway.
Hell yeah. Well, I'll get all those links in the show notes so you guys can check them out. BitKarrot, thank you. It's been too long. It's awesome catching up. I'm going to go get some damn sleep.
My pleasure. All right. Take care.
All right. Later. That was a lot of fun. I think it's a really important thing to break down these barriers because I really think monetization is one of the biggest challenges that we have, and understanding how to make open source sustainable. And also just in general, one of the things that BitKarrot and I talked about a lot that I think is also kind of misdirected in a lot of cases is just understanding that the best way to get involved or the best things to develop may literally just be the things that you need. Solve your problems, because if it's something that you use, there's no reason to drop the project. That's what I'm trying to do with PearDrive. I want to build the tool that I want to use. And if it solves my problem better than everything else, I won't be able to let it go. You know what I mean? That's what I hope. Granted, I also hope to be able to make a profit off of it, but if I don't, it's an important enough problem to me, and I think the project could be good enough that there's that possibility. I'm at least trying to think about it in that context because I want it to survive. I don't want it to become one of these projects where somebody builds something really neat and then it just dies on the vine. I feel like this isn't addressed often enough, and I really appreciate BitKarrot coming on and talking to me about it. Especially she really values her privacy. So it means a lot to get some time to sit down and pick her brain about it. And also, I have so many links in the show notes, in the description right here. Hivetalk.org is the tool that we were talking about. And there is a ton of cool stuff with Noster apps, the App Store, a bunch of different like little experimental things. Find them, go out, search them, try them out, and let people know that you did, and zap them if you find them. Because I think that discovery is also a big part of the problem as to why projects that might actually have an enormous amount of value never seem to get off the ground. So with that, don't forget to check those things out. The links will be right there ever so conveniently. You just scroll up, and then there it is right there in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss this show and the many, many things that we are covering and exploring, and the tools that we will be building. I got a Devs Who Can't Code episode coming out really, really soon, and I'm excited about that one. And that should do it. Shout out to Swan Bitcoin and CoinKite for sponsoring this show. Buy your Bitcoin on Swan, withdraw it to your cold card, and don't forget the discount code, which is also, oh my God, it's so conveniently right there in the description. Can you believe it? All right. I'm out, guys. I'm Guy Swan. And until next time, everybody, take it easy.